Notre Dame fans, and welcome to the Tom and Tom Show. I'm Tom.
And I'm Tom.
And we are here to talk about one thing and one thing only.
Notre Dame football.
Well, if I may borrow a line from my co-host from last week's show to start today's program, it would be, wow. The Fighting Irish now 6-0, and after 3 years of getting pushed around by the Cardinal, the Fighting Irish actually pushed back, and I mean literally, as the Irish beat Stanford with a great goal line stance in overtime and remain unbeaten, 20-13, in front of a home crowd of over 80,000 fans. Tom, your thoughts on the game?
Amazing. I mean, really, this was just a classic college football game, the way the good Lord intended it to be. And this was Notre Dame demonstrating how good that defense is. I mean, I feel like a broken record that maybe you're splicing in a piece from each week when we're talking about this defense, but they not only play consistently, they get consistently better each week. And that's something just great to say about a Notre Dame team that I think we thought would have a great defense. We believed even 2 weeks ago, well, this is a good defense, but I think we can finally now say this is a great defense. To see a goal line stand in overtime against a Stanford team that's very physical, that can run the ball at will, against a running back in Stephon Taylor who's very effective, and to be able to do that 3 consecutive downs, that is a classic college football game. If Brian Kelly's era at Notre Dame ended tomorrow, this would be the crown jewel thus far in his coaching tenure. Thankfully, it's not. We've got a lot of Brian Kelly to go and a lot of seasons to go, but this is just an absolutely wonderful win.
Man, I have to agree with you. What a classic game. I mean, how are they going to top this? Stephon Taylor running back on the final series of plays for Stanford. For the game, he had 28 carries for 102 yards, but he needed 103 yards.
That's true.
But talk about the classic goal line stance. I mean, to me, that's pure football, defensive football at its best. And I kind of half expected to see Rudy come out of that pile with the ball at the classic goal line stance.
Yeah.
Kind of thing that, they make movies about. Tom, your thoughts on the defense. And by the way, the Fighting Irish have not given up a touchdown in 4 straight games.
16 quarters, can you believe that? And it wasn't for a lack of Stanford moving the ball. I mean, they had the ability to make some big passes. Taylor, as you said, went for over 100 yards. But last week we talked about something real key. Notre Dame needed to win the rushing attack, and they barely did. They had 150 rushing yards to Stanford's 140-some. But, that's to me where the defense really clicked in, is they kept Stanford in check. They gave up some yardage here and there, but they didn't allow the big plays. And that's where I think you've seen that defense be successful all year. They haven't allowed big plays to be given up on them. And, that's a critical thing when you've got a team that can run, and if running's opening up passing lanes, if you can just limit the big plays, you're going to put yourself in shorter fields. You're going to put yourself in a better advantage to win.
Now, who was getting it done for the Irish? Was it the front 4, front 7, or just collectively?
Really, I would say I would look at 3 players. Obviously, Manti Te'o. What else can you say about Te'o? He is the heart and soul of college football right now. To me, he may not win the Heisman, though I hope he gets serious consideration, but he is what college football embodies as a student athlete. He had 11 tackles and led the Irish team. Really, once again, played well in pass defense. Stephon Tuitt and Louis Nix played very well. They were getting into that line and pressuring the quarterback like any players anywhere in college. They look like an SEC caliber front 7. And I think that's really what Notre Dame's defense is right now. That's not a slouch team in Stanford. So for them to come out, those 3 players to play the way they did, hats off to them.
Now, let's turn our attention to the offense. Tommy Rees relieved Everett Golson late in the 4th quarter. Not typically on who he used to do in previous games. Your thoughts on that move, and basically your thoughts on the whole offense?
Well, here's one thing I'll say about the quarterbacking this game. Obviously, Golson had some tough struggles. Golson fumbled 4 times, recovered 3. 1 was recovered in the end zone by Stanford for a touchdown. So he had his struggles, but he was resilient. He hung in there. He made some tough passes when he needed to. He got outside the pocket and ran when he had the opportunity to. And, he hit Tyler Eifert on a great 24-yard touchdown late in the game. But here's something that he did that I thought was really special that you're not going to see in the stats, is he hung in and recovered from a tough start. That's hats off to him for, as a young guy, being able to have that resolve and that focus. But also, hats off to the coaching staff. This is the first time I think we've seen Golson struggle early, but yet still stay in the game to test his resiliency. So I think you would have seen Golson finish the game had he not had that mild concussion and Reese to come in. But what more can you say about Tommy Reese? I don't know if there's a guy in college or NFL right now that is more comfortable in the relief pitching role as a quarterback, if you will, than Tommy Reese. He comes in, he throws perfect in overtime, finds T.J. Jones on a wonderful 7-yard slant, and really puts Notre Dame in a position to win the game. Hats off to both Reese and Golson. I don't know how long this dual-headed quarterback system will continue. I don't know if it's the design of the coaching staff, but hey, it works, and we'll take the wins how we can get them.
You know, I have to agree with you. Tommy Reese looks very comfortable coming off the bench. Is this the turning point for Notre Dame? I mean, we're right in the middle of the season. Now they're ranked number 5, and not so much looking up as maybe sitting on top of the crop of football teams vying for a national championship. What do you think about Notre Dame's chances for a national championship?
They got a lot better after that game on Saturday, that's for sure. You know, you've got a game right now this next weekend where K-State, who's number 4 in the country, is going to West Virginia. Not a gimme by any means. West Virginia is a very potent, high-octane offense. You've got Oregon that's going to have to go up against USC in L.A. They're going to have to play Oregon State, so they've got a tough schedule. You've got some tough games, and Notre Dame's got USC and Oklahoma still left on the calendar too. So, you know, Notre Dame is in the driver's seat right now. If they continue to have a defensive performance like they've had this entire season, they're going to do well. I will say that the offense needs to step it up, and I think all indications are the coaching staff is really focusing on getting Everett Golson and that offense where it needs to be in order to compete with Oklahoma and USC. But, you know, they're in a great position. I did not believe, and I think you'd find a lot of Notre Dame fans that would say this too, I did not believe Notre Dame would be here this time at the beginning of the season. 6-0, I mean, this is a wonderful thing. Here's a kind of a fun little stat. The last time Notre Dame beat Stanford to go 6-0 in a season was in 1988. In 1988, they won the national championship. Does that mean anything? I don't know. Also in 1988, they beat Michigan on their home field. They beat Michigan State in East Lansing. Well, that happened again this year. So there's some indications that maybe 1988 all over, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We got a long season yet to go, but they looked wonderful, and they control their own destiny, which is a great thing.
Now, Brigham Young University comes to town with a record of 4-3 as they visit South Bend, Indiana, for the first time since 2005. Now, this sounds really good. And the number 5 Fighting Irish trying to improve to 7-0. Your thoughts on BYU? You
know, BYU has on paper a good defense. Now, in spite of this will sound a little arrogant, I don't think they've played anybody. And, you know, when you've played a team from the FCS and Weber State, when you've played a fairly weak Washington State team, they blew out Hawaii. Yeah, their defense looks great on paper, but are they going to do much against the Irish? You know, I'm not sure, but I will say that the Irish need to perform offensively so they don't make the BYU's defense look much better than they are. And I think that's my biggest fear is that Notre Dame's offense, if they produce, can look as good as any team out there. If they don't, they're going to make an opposing defense look a lot better than what they are.
Notre Dame will win if?
Notre Dame will win if they can move the ball. They need to be able to rush. They were able to beat Stanford in the rushing game. That's a good thing. But it was wet, soggy conditions in South Bend, so they weren't going to be able to pass a whole lot. Conditions should be better this weekend, so if they can demonstrate the run, that's going to open up passing lanes for Everett Golson, and they should have a fairly effective time taking it to BYU's offense.
Injuries to Notre Dame, anybody we need to be concerned about?
Well, Golson is the biggest injury. He went out at the end of the game. He had a mild concussion. He was able to pass the cognitive tests necessary to compete. He practiced on Wednesday and by all indications should start on Saturday, but don't be surprised and almost expect to see Tommy Reese at some point.
Your final thoughts?
You know, Notre Dame is putting together a really special season. We've got a long ways to go, but this could be a very interesting Saturday. You had a tough-fought Stanford game. You've got Oklahoma in 2 weeks. Let's focus on BYU, put them to bed. Notre Dame has a 2-touchdown advantage in the Vegas books. Let's make Vegas be right.
Well, Fighting Irish fans, that's all the time we have. Join us next week, same time.
Same station.
For the Tom and Tom Show, I'm Tom.
And I'm Tom.
And we are here for one reason and one reason only.
Notre Dame football.
Cheer for Notre Dame, wake up the